At what age did you discover a connection between diet and health?
Today I did 1,800 push-ups.
Dr. Gabriel Cousens is an 82-year-old pioneer in holistic health and raw vegan living. A medical doctor, author, and spiritual teacher, he has reversed diabetes through a live food diet, performs 1,800 daily push-ups, and draws energy from sunlight through meditation and sun dancing.
How long have you been eating one meal a day?
I find myself needing less and less. So I'm also a sun dancer. So a 4-year sun dancer, you dance 4 days without food or water. So out of 80 people for 4 years, I was the only one able to do that. What am I eating? Sunlight. What's food? Sunlight. It isn't just a diet. It's a way of life where everything we do creates vitality, what I would call spiritual vitality. Fasting, meditating, and the vegan diet all increase your brain cells. So we obviously don't want to have a shrinking brain.
Today's guest is Dr. Gabriel Cousens, and I'm really excited because I've known him for a long time, and I'm so excited to have him here today. Dr. Cousens, thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm really pleased to be with you, Paul. It's fun. I mean, I've been doing this for over 45 years in the live food, and it just gets better all the time.
All right, Dr. Cousens, you are 82 years old now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and at what age did you discover a connection between diet and health?
In my late 20s. I was 28 when I said, okay, I need to become vegan. Remember, this is a while ago, okay? This is in the 60s. There were very few people doing these things. It wasn't like it is today. There was Victor, Kavinskas, myself, and a few other people. But it isn't like today. It's more horizontal. It's much broader today.
Okay.
And my interest of it was because of meditation. I found in a deep meditation, the message came, how do I go ever deeper? And a voice rang out and said, you really need to go 100% live food. And then I began to understand the idea that, so that's it. I mean, I'm not ignoring the physical. I mean, today I did 1,800 push-ups at 82. So obviously there's much physical benefit, and coordination, and you're pretty active when you're really eating this diet, and age becomes far less of a factor. So it's a whole lifestyle. It isn't just a diet. It's a way of life where everything we do creates vitality and supports a kind of what I would call spiritual vitality.
Sure. Now, when you say you did 1,000 push-ups or over 1,000 push-ups,
I did 1,800 push-ups today.
1,800. Now you're in a different time zone, so it's towards the evening where you're at. So, do you do them throughout the day, or do you do them in one shot?
No, all at once.
In a row.
Yeah.
1,800 push-ups in a row.
Yes, 10 in a row.
What do you mean 10 in a row?
No, I said Ken, yes.
Okay, Ken.
1,800 push-ups all at one time. Now, I slowly built up to that. When I was 60, I did 601 on the 6th day of a fast, a juice fast. And I said, well, this is interesting. And then I continued, and so I built that up over time.
Now, the form of your push-up, I mean, are you going all the way down and coming all the way up?
Pretty much, enough. Yeah, I'm a few inches from the ground. They're real push-ups, okay? My wife gives me a hard time. She's a yoga teacher. If you don't do it right, she's not happy.
Yeah. So 1,800 push-ups.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go a little higher, but in time, that's where I am now.
Okay. So that's pretty amazing. So we're going to get into exercise, but I want to get into these important questions that people want to know. So on this live food diet that you're consuming, and I've been to your retreat when you had it in Arizona, there's many different ways today that people promote what they call a raw food diet. And we know raw foods and live foods aren't the same. First, explain to us the difference between raw food and live food. Explain to people the difference.
Well, the key, and this is actually some research I printed, is after a few days, the food loses its vital life force. Actually, the truth is after 24 hours, it loses a high percentage. By 3 days, the life force in the food. So food has a life force, and I present pictures where you can see the energy of the food. That's live food. So if it's been on a grocery shelf for a week, it's raw food, but not live food because its energetic force is diminished. And this is all documented with Carillion photography.
Now, I live in a place where I'm able to grow my own food, the majority of my own food.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
what we
say
do.
in a supermarket within a week. So what is the difference between live food and raw? Because I know when I pick a fruit right off the tree and I have it sitting on my counter, it's not the same a week after I pick it.
Yeah.
A day after it's not the same, but it starts losing over time. So where does it go from? When does it go from live food according to the camera photography? When does it go from live food to raw food? A day,
Well,
2 days, 3 days, or
yeah,
does
I
it
actually
depend on the food?
I did the research with it, taking Carillion photography pictures. So I'm not giving an estimate. In reality, after 24 hours, it loses about 95% of its field. And in about 3 days, the field is gone.
Now, does refrigeration help or hurt that timetable?
It helps it. It helps it because there's enzyme degradation, and when it's colder, it degrades slower.
Okay, so it slows it down. Now, what about things like that are known as living foods, like sprouts? So if you take a sprout, you cut it off the tree and you eat it. Is it the same thing for a sprout, like a sunflower sprout? You take it off the tree, is it still 24 hours? It's lost most of its vitality?
Yeah, I didn't actually measure the sprouts, but that's what I would say. I mean, because I again try to track all this with Carillion photography. I'm going to say after 3 days, it's still really good food, but it doesn't have that life force energy.
Sure. And then obviously, once you cook the food, then you've taken it from the raw state to a
Right.
completely
And
different state of
it's substantially not the same food.
yes.
You cook the you know demineralize the enzymes. They're no longer working right, and so all the components of that life force have been broken down as well.
One of the reasons why I moved to a place where I can grow my own food is for the very reasons you just said. And not that I can get 100% live food because some food I'm picking and I'm not eating the same day, but I want to make sure I get at least one live food in my diet every day. In your opinion, Dr. Cousens, can somebody eat 100% raw food diet without having any live food and still get the benefits of eating healthy?
Well, it's a relative thing. If you go 100% live, well, actually, the way I've measured it when I've kind of looked at Carillion and stuff, if you do 100% vegan, 80% live food, it kind of comes out energetically the same as if you're doing 100% live food. You go below that percentage of live food, then it gets you lose significant amount of effect of the food. However, if it's still better than cooked food. So it's relative that way.
And on that relative scale, dehydrating and freezing, would that still be better than cooked?
So when I did my research, because I have to speak from that point of view, dehydrating you lose about 25%, and that's the way we store it. But besides that, the other one you lose. If you freeze it, you're losing 50% to 75% over time.
And when you say percent, like most people talk nutrition wise, but you're talking life force wise.
Correct.
Okay, so freezing is actually you lose more than dehydrating.
Yes, dehydrating still. Well, you lose 25%. That's where we've measured it. We actually like. It's a good question you ask, right?
Yes.
And so we needed to. You're not the first one to ask the question. So it's like, okay, let's answer it.
But the longer you wait, like if something's dehydrated sitting around for a month versus something's dehydrated sitting down for 3 days, does that make a difference? Or once it's dehydrated, it stops?
So in general, once food has been picked, it loses energy over time. It holds most of it for about a day. Okay, after 3 days, it's lost most of the observable, measurable energy. Still's got some energy. So when you dehydrate it, we'll lose immediately 25%. And then it still will lose over time.
Well, that's so powerful. And I want to talk to you about these things because, when we hear about the benefits of raw food, enzymes, and nutrition, that's the time we take today. You've done 1,000 interviews talking about that, but this life force is so important because from
Yeah.
my research, uh, the reason why we want to eat the way we eat, besides, of course, the nutritional benefits of it, is this life force that you're talking
Correct.
about.
Correct.
And from what I've understood, or I'm understanding, and you'd be great since you're doing this 82 years, a lot of people are now looking at not just what we eat, but the times we eat it. I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet that talks about not eating before going to sleep because it interferes with your sleep, not eating when it's dark outside, there's the connection of daylight and darkness and food. In your research, have you seen any connection about digestion and the times we eat our food?
Yes. And it also comes from an Ayurvedic place because I have a live food Ayurvedic approach. Okay. People think live food Ayurvedic means cooked. No, you can do live food Ayurvedic. Okay. That being said, the most powerful time to eat where your digestive forces are the highest, now I've kind of tested this, but is between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So I eat the main or really only meal of the day at that time. Usually it's around 1 o'clock.
Okay, and that is because when the sun's out at its highest, that's when the body is going to digest the most.
Right. And you're getting the most solar energy into the whole picture.
Exactly. And the opposite of that, when the moon is out and the connection with the waters and the cleansing and everything else, the middle of the night would be the worst time to eat for digestion.
Pretty
Understand?
much after 6, your digestive power, physiologically, the highest are between, as I say, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And then by 6 o'clock, your digestive energies have gone significantly lower. And it starts to go down around 4, but from 6 to 10, they hit really low in the evening. So I don't eat in the evening, period. I mean, I will have liquid, but by and large, I don't recommend eating in the evening because it fructifies. It doesn't really digest so well energetically.
Now, when you say you eat one meal a day between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.,
Yeah, basically 1 p.m.
1 p.m. So when you sit down to a meal, like how big is that meal?
So another thing that happens, I'm answering your question, is that over time you need less and less food. You're able to assimilate more energy from the food that you eat. So I find myself needing less and less. So the meal isn't that big. It's a medium-sized salad, maybe something else. That's
Now,
it.
how important is
With avocado and sprouts and stuff. I do eat a lot of sprouts.
Okay, and you're getting I mean, do you look at the nutritional standard nutritional numbers, or when you're in your situation where you're at, is that not as important to focus on, oh, I got to get this many calories and this many nutrients of protein and this many this, or you don't focus on any of that?
No, and I don't know, people, that's a very gross way of understanding the picture. To me, it's about energy. But how do you know you're right? Okay. Well, I'm the same way as when I graduated high school. It was an honorable mention all-state football player and it was good condition. And I'm the same weight. I'm a little stronger per body weight than I was. But what I'm saying is, does it work? Yeah, I have energy all day long. I don't think about needing a stimulant. You get what I'm saying? I get up around 6, and then I go to bed around 10:30, roughly speaking. And the energy's there all day long. That's it. Now, so if you're going all day long at the same energetic level, you feel strong. You're able to do. I do yoga. I do pranayama, breathing exercises. It's like, and I walk. My wife and I walk pretty much every day. That's going on. If I can do all that, why would I think I'm getting enough calories or not getting enough? It doesn't matter. It's how you're doing. So calories is very gross. Okay, energy is the story. Energy is the story. So I'm getting enough energy from the food to do all these things nonstop.
And obviously today people are confusing energy with stimulation because people say they feel good, but when you look at their diet and investigate, it's probably because of the amount of stimulants they have in their diet and life, right?
Right. Yes. And if you're not really, the key measure is your energy steady all day long. I mean, that's a real easy way to do it. You're not thinking calories. You're just talking. Your diet should be working. If it's working, if your energy steady all day long, I'll put it that way.
Now, you mentioned you eat a good amount of sprouts. You have this small salad. What is consistent energy?
Medium salad, and I have
Medium salad.
avocado. I usually have a half of avocado.
Okay, with this
whatever else.
consistent energy you have all day, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with what you were discussing is the life force in the food because you're eating food that's grown and you're not letting it sit around forever or you're eating it pretty quickly after it's picked. I would assume,
Correct.
right?
Organic, usually within a day. But there's more to energy than that. You don't get food just from energy. Now, I'm also a sun dancer. You know what that is?
Yes.
So, a 4-year sun dancer, you dance 4 days without food or water. So, in my tribal thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking sun glazing, but for sun dancing is different.
Yeah, you dance 4 days without food and water.
Okay.
So out of 80 people for 4 years, I was the only one able to do that. I'm getting to a point here. It's really important. You can start to draw energies from everywhere. So here I am without food and water. I'm the only one to make it for 4 days. People had to leave the circle. I'm in the circle. What am I eating? Sunlight. What's food? Condensed sunlight. Then I made the connection that when we've been on raw foods, live foods, our ability to pull sunlight from the sun is amplified. Now, there was a cancer researcher in Germany, and she found the same thing. She was treating her people with live food, and they could be in the sun 4 times longer without getting sunburned. So what I'm saying is I'm doing the sun dance, but I'm being fed directly by the sun. I believe that when we're doing live food and it's fresh and it's sun-kissed, because it has to be sun-kissed, you are actually improving your ability to take in the sunlight energy directly. Now, I couldn't figure out why I could do this for 4 days. Nobody else could. And I felt great. So how's that? And then I began looking, and I didn't get sunburned. You dance without, you dance with a skirt on, okay, nothing above. I didn't get sunburned. Some of the Native Americans, they got sunburned. They have much darker skin. I'm pretty much pale skin. I got a little bit tan, not much. So what's the message? When you're doing fresh live food, you are eating sunlight. What do foods do? They collect the sunlight, and then you can eat it.
Well,
So there's a whole other level here that I'm talking about.
sure. And we have to be careful that people understand because I mean, if you break this down to words, somebody could say, well, Gabriel dry fasted for 4 days. And we don't want people to do this without being ready to do this. And you definitely can get
Exactly.
yourselves in trouble. So we don't necessarily recommend people try something like this until they reach a level where they could at least get live food in their diet, because most people aren't. They're just maybe getting raw food to a
Right.
degree. So I want to warn people about
I
that.
think it's a very good point. You remember, the Sundance is a whole ceremony. It's a whole, I mean, I've gone longer without eating, but that isn't the point. The point is, I'm getting sunlight. I'm in the sun. You're standing from sunrise to sunset dancing. It's 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day, whatever.
Yeah.
And you are eating the sun. But see, not getting sunburned kind of tells you something. You're eating, you're observing the sun. And I believe my insight into it is that's because I was doing live food and I was able my body learned to pull the sunlight energy. So it was easier to eat the sunlight.
Well, most fasting experts, or at least fasting teachers, or coaches, however you want to phrase it, would say it's not. I mean, if you are water fasting, at least, it's best to move as little as possible and rest as much as possible.
Well, that's natural hygiene. I don't really agree with that because the more movement you have, more yoga you do, the more you're flushing the toxins out of your system. So I would say natural hygiene believes that, but I'm dancing and doing that, and we're not water fasting. You're involved in the ceremonial thing. You're in the center of this thing. You're tied to a tree with hooks in your chest. It's a little different.
Okay. So what
But
about like when you in natural hygiene, when you break a fast, you got to be real careful how you refeed. So when you're doing something like this sun dancing, when you start to refeed and start introducing food, do you do anything different, or do you just go back to your one salad a day like nothing's changed?
well, it's actually quite an interesting question because that has changed over time. Initially, I pretty much just did water and then watermelon. After the Sundance, there's a big feast. I would have watermelon
Sure,
to hydrate it.
sure, sure.
That's pretty much it. And it usually takes me about 3 days to come back to the live food style that I've been doing. I give
Gotcha.
myself at least 3 days.
Now, I want to talk to you about something that I'm fascinated with, the topic of sleep. You say you sleep from around 10 to 6 a.m.,
I try
uh,
to get 7 hours sleep actually.
7 hours of sleep. And do you think that the type of diet somebody's eating determines how much sleep they actually require?
I can't really answer that except an opinion. Okay. The sleep research that I've studied and that I research on myself is somewhere that 7 hours is the magic number. When people get 6 hours, they get by, they can function, but when you get to higher levels of functioning, it's somewhat compromised. In general, obviously, people are a little bit different. Some people need 8 hours. That's way too much for me. So I've gone to what they call the max, the at best is 7 hours. When I do 6 hours for more than 3 or 4 days, I can feel I'm not as sharp. It's subtle, but you are stressing your body. The body needs time to repair itself. And a lot of that time, particularly the brain, is while you're sleeping.
Sure. How long have you been eating one meal a day?
Oh, years. I don't know when I started because it kind of happened naturally.
And did you
Yeah, I
find when you
wasn't
reduced
hungry. I wasn't hungry.
did you define when you reduced your food to one meal a day, your sleep needs of that 7 hours went down, or was it always similar for
Didn't
you?
really change.
Okay. And
My sleep rhythm is the key is getting to bed by no later than 10:30. Um, the research shows that sleep between 10 and 2 a.m. is the most powerful time to get your sleep.
Now, recent research is showing that I used to think being a night owl was a choice of the environment we live in today. But research is showing some people naturally are night owls and they do better with sleep.
Yeah, and I won't disagree with that, but in general, the larger research will show that yes, some people are night owls, some people have different physiology for sure. We're not cows, we're all unique beings, you know.
Sure.
So I would agree, but generally speaking, the research shows the healthiest brain function, which is to me important, is still getting your sleep between 10 and 2. I just can't get to bed by 10. I'm still too active.
Sure. And what about your diet? Do you ever, or your nutrients, do you ever check your blood work these days or no?
Yeah, actually I did. Everything's normal.
Everything's normal on one meal a day.
So where I am, you're allowed a free blood workup once a year, twice a year, something like that. In the kind of state insurance, so to speak. That everybody gets, and everything was totally normal.
And you eat 100% vegan diet?
Oh yeah,
Vegan diet. And when it comes to things like
that's since I was 28 years old.
okay, and when it comes to things like uh, your essential fatty acids and B12, do you supplement with these things or anything, or do you just let
Yes, I
everything?
do. The research does not show a vegan diet supplies enough B12. Human active B12. I made a big point because it was something I didn't get right. There's a lot of things of B12 in vegan food, but it's not human active. It's general B12. It doesn't really feed our system. So as soon as I figured that issue out, then it's got to be human active. So I do take a B12 supplement, a
And
human active B12 supplement.
what type of B12 is that you take?
Well, it's from bacteria.
Okay. There's cheap B12 supplements that's found in a store that does raise blood levels. Is that
No. It has to be human active. Blood levels, that's where I made my mistake initially. Blood levels is not the story. Human active blood levels is what you want.
so?
That
How and
makes
where
any
do you get human
sense?
active B12?
It's from bacteria that make their own B12. So it's live B12, it's not synthetic.
Again, how and where do you get something like that?
There's a few companies that do it. I'm
Okay.
not exactly want to advertise the companies. They will say human active B12. I know of at least 2 companies that do that.
And how do you know going from the blood levels that they weren't sufficient enough for you and you had to find human active? What do you have some symptoms that made you realize something was missing?
It's a good question. The answer is no. I'm just like, I always want to do the best I can. And I looked at that real closely and said, wait, I'm not getting it. I've got totally sufficient B12 levels, but it's not human active B12. It's just B12. I want human active. So I kind of did it through my studies.
Okay. Okay.
So good. Now let's get some human active B12. B12 per se isn't enough.
What about the essential fatty acids on a vegan diet? Where would you get something like that from?
Um, I get extracted omega 3s, which is what you're talking about,
Yes.
DHA, EPA, from yellow algae.
A yellow algae.
Yeah.
Okay. And where do you
Not
recommend?
in blue green. It's not in blue green algae.
Okay. Where do you recommend, or is it possible in the United States for somebody to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you?
My website, Dr. Cousens Global or Holistic People, we sell it.
Okay. And what about the algae oils that are out there? Do you think those are good vegan supplements of the omega-3?
I can't answer that as well. I just take the blue green algae, which I've taken since 1982 when it came out. really good for brain function. But it doesn't have the human active B12, or does spirulina, nor does chlorella. Okay, it doesn't have the human active. So I can't exactly give you an answer for that question, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I haven't documented it.
Sure. There are some people that are attempting a raw food diet now without taking any supplementation, including any B12. I know at least one person who's doing it long term, but others are doing it and they're new to this. How dangerous or smart do you think something like that is?
I researched that pretty clear, a lot, because it's a very good question. Okay. Everyone has a certain storage level, okay, and how they use it. There is a study of a guy who never took B12 until he was 95 years old. At 95, he collapsed. Obviously, he had to be pretty healthy to make the 95. He collapsed, couldn't walk, couldn't think, they thought he was going to die. Somebody gave him a shot of B12 and he came alive again. So his B12, his inherent B12 storage, lasted him into his 90s. Now that's a variable here. So, but generally, give it a few years and you get depleted.
Okay. You've mentioned when I was at your clinic out in Arizona, you had powdered flax meal grounded up. So do you think but some people say to me, we could just eat flax seeds and chia seeds and get our omega 3s. Do you think for some people they can get it from just that, or do you think they need more?
Again, there is a biochemical individuality. I pretty much found I could do that, but I didn't totally trust it. And I have different ways of testing what I need or don't need that are kind of not dependent on a biochemistry lab. And I found that even though I didn't feel it, to be honest with you, it was better to, take something that was human active.
Okay. And is there any way to measure it? Because if you don't go by the blood test, is there any other way to
There
measure
isn't
it?
really a good way, okay? That's the problem, because the blood tests they measure for B12, not human active B12. I'm sure there's someone out there, some lab that does measure that, but I don't have their number.
There is the omega 3
Somebody had to be measuring it, because that's how I read about it. Somebody had to do that.
There is the blood test for the omega 3. Do you trust that or not necessarily?
No, I do. I do.
Okay. So no matter where somebody's getting the omega 3, if that test is in line, then you would say they're covering their bases there.
Yes.
Okay, now let me ask you this.
I really don't recommend omega 3s from fish, because the fish are so contaminated and they're radioactive and they have, hundreds of toxins. That's really a bad idea.
Sure, but if somebody's getting it from the flax and the chia, and they want to know if they're getting enough, they could take the blood test and to see if
Yeah.
that's sufficient enough for them. Okay, now you saying that you get your nutrition from the sun
And I do chia seeds, so
and chia seeds as well. You saying you get your nutrition from the sun. Why do you need B12 supplementation if you get your nutrients from the sun, in your opinion?
It's an interesting question. I haven't ever even asked the question myself. So it was more by trial by error. I know I can go 4 days and be fine. Can I go 2 weeks and be fine? Some people have, but I don't need to do that, because that is not, even 4 days is a lot for people. Okay. Yes, I've done a 40-day fast, but that's with juices, okay, and water, okay. But the point I'm making is, it's not really a good model. How long can you go without it until you run into trouble? Oh, everybody's different. Some guy made it to 95 years old without B12. Other people get deficient pretty quickly. And for kids, they get enough for about 2 years from their mother's milk. But if they aren't making it, their development is stymied, not good. So I don't want to get people to take chances. That's why I've kind of come to, okay, 100% vegan, 8% live. You're good. Everybody I put on the deck, they're going to be really good.
So
And that's why I kind of think about it. Does that make sense? I'm not
yes,
trying to be
yes.
the exception. I'm an explorer.
Yeah, so you're saying don't push the limits and don't and cover your bases.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't want to get people hurt. I don't want to give
sure.
people information that could possibly hurt them down the line.
Is the B12 that's found in animal products for non-vegans a human active form, or is it not?
As far as I know, it is.
Okay. Where do you recommend vegan children get B12 from? The same place you're getting it, the human active form?
Yeah, it's the bacteria. They make it. They
Okay.
make B12.
And going back to the chia seeds you mentioned, and also flax, but chia specifically, some people make this dessert, this chia pudding, where they soak it overnight and it forms up, and they make a little dessert out of it. Does the chia need to be grounded up like the flaxseed to be digestible, to get the nutrients?
As far as I know, no.
So it can get the nutrients if they're not broken, if they're
Yeah, as far as my research tells me, no. I've kind of researched it out. It's a little different than flax.
okay. So okay. And have you heard of basil seeds? People use that in place of chia seeds these days. It's getting popular. Have you heard of that?
My wife is allergic to basil, so we don't really use it.
All right. Tell us about sprouts. You said you do a lot of sprouts.
Yeah.
First off, sprouts and microgreens, are they both equally as important, or in your opinion, is one better than the other?
I think it's good to have both.
And you do both.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell people about the importance of having sprouts in the diet.
Well, sprouts are extremely high life force energy. When we study it with chameleon photography, they're kind of up to the highest life force energy you're going to see. Okay, so that's how I would describe it. So when I'm eating sprouts, I'm eating life force energy. That's what's in my mind.
Okay. And what about, you mentioned in your meal that you eat the one meal, you have a nice medium-sized salad. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard you mention fruit. And if you're just having a salad, unless you're eating fruit in that salad, do you eat any fruit?
Generally, it's less than 0.5% of my diet.
Okay. What's the issue you have with fruit, or do you just not have room in your diet to eat it?
I'm not hungry. I don't. It's
I mean,
not a
why
big
isn't
deal.
your one meal a couple of pieces of fruit instead of the salad? I mean, is there a thing that keeps you from eating fruit other than not being hungry?
Yeah, I understand your question. I don't think it has the nutrition that leafy greens and sprouts have.
They have different nutrients, but are you
Yeah,
saying you don't? So when you say it doesn't have nutrients, you think it doesn't have enough nutrients?
yeah. I also, because I do a lot of work with diabetes. There's a cure for diabetes is with my books. Okay. I looked at very closely. Well, what effect does fructose have? Which is in fruit. It doesn't immediately raise your blood sugar like glucose does, but indirectly raises it, and also can cause fatty liver. And fructose disrupts the glia cells of the brain, which are the connecting cells of the brain, a factor of 10 times more than glucose. So I'm not in a hurry, to be honest, to have the fructose.
Were
That's affected my opinion, my action on that.
were those studies that you're following or experiments to come to that conclusion based on studies that you've done with fruit, or has it been based
No,
on
these
this?
are published studies.
But from my experience, most of those published studies was done with fructose. I mean, I'm sorry, high fructose corn syrup. and not just straight fruit syrup, fruit sugar.
Fruit sugar. But none of that is any good. It's got to be fructose from fruit.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
I know what you're saying, and I can't give you the answer because I thought I was reading about a certain amount of fruit working. You need 15 to 25 grams of fructose. That's your safe zone. When I
okay.
researched it up.
So
So
what happens? What happens if you do too much? Because I know you worked with diabetes, and there are people out there promoting the cure for diabetes. You can eat all the fruit you want, and they
yeah,
seem to have success. So, what's your opinion about people?
they had some success. I explored it with people, but it doesn't compare to what we get. In 3 weeks, 61% are healed. They're off their insulin, and their blood sugars are normal. Okay. I can't tell you because I'm also telling you that fructose has long-term negative effects. Fatty liver, increases fatty liver, and affects your brain 10 times worse than glucose.
And you're basing that on studies that have been done with high fructose corn syrup, and not.
I can't answer that question because I can't remember. When I looked at it.
But would you agree that's an
It's a
important
fair
question?
question. It's a fair question.
Would you see? Would you agree that's an important thing to know? Like, so people can be warned if it is done with just fructose and not the high corn syrup, that then they need to be warned. But if it was done with, it would be different. If the studies you.
I would think it would be different. I'm looking at it a slightly different way. I'm looking at how much fruit you can have that will safely give you between 15 and 25 milligrams of fructose. That seems to be a safe zone. So I'm not saying no fructose, but I'm not saying a high fructose diet.
Got you. But you are also saying that it's not necessary to have fruit at all, even, and it's not
No,
really benefiting a person if they have it, other than the pleasure they get from the taste of it.
you don't need fructose. Put it that way.
Sure. Okay. And I know you're a big fan of the Bible and Torah, and in Torah, in Genesis 1:29, it says the food for man is fruits and vegetables. Uh,
Right.
and then in Genesis 9:3, they introduce it's introduced that now God says you're allowed to eat animals. What's your explanation for that particular verse?
Well, the people were complaining about the diet that we're on that Moses put them on. They were complaining. And, now this goes back to Noah. I understand that. But people somehow, it wasn't enough for them to be able to stay on a diet. They really couldn't handle a vegan diet. Okay, that's the diet of Gan Eden, right? Live food, vegan diet, right? But people really couldn't handle it. And so at the time of Noah, because that's when the
Sure.
dispensation came, it was okay. If you can't handle it, you'll get back to it in time. This is what Maimonides also said, the great 11th, 12th century brilliant physician and philosopher. You eventually get back to it. That's what I guide people back to that, the Gan Eden diet. But people, if they're not ready, we got to start with where they can handle it. So I think that the message was more that God wasn't saying it's okay. It's saying if you can't do it, I'm not going to drive you crazy. Let's make it easy, and then we'll go to where we need to go.
Okay.
So that wasn't the end diet. That was the beginning diet, moving towards, a vegan diet.
So how do you know, or how do you suspect that people couldn't handle it? Because up to that time, they were still living a long life.
But they were complaining. They weren't happy.
Well, now
And then when they switched, what happened? Their lifespan dramatically decreased.
there were no recorded complaints in the Bible about people complaining about the diet prior to the flood with Noah. So where are you suggesting that they were complaining about, or they?
Well, that's kind of commentaries. Okay? That's the way I
Okay.
would put it. Obviously, they didn't just make that up. Noah comes out of the ark, and people aren't somehow able to handle the diet they were on. whatever happened. I don't know what went on, but they got a dispensation.
Here's a question I got. So prior to the flood, there was all this evil and wickedness. That's why the flood came. Do you think people were started to eat animals prior to the flood, and that was part of the evil and wickedness that led to the flood? Is that a possibility?
No, that's a big possibility. But they're also eating each other. They had turned cannibalistic as well. People have broken down in their relationships. So they were killing each other, eating each other. I think that's in there in some of the commentary.
Some people would suggest that the reason why God allowed man to consume the animals is because after the flood, all of the other than the vegetation they took to feed the animals on the ark were all gone. So what else were they going to eat until the stuff grew back?
Yeah, that's too practical. I think it was a bigger decision than that. I
Okay.
think they saw that humans weren't ready yet to be, not all humans were ready to be on that level of diet. I mean, Moses allowed the people to eat different things, right? They, but did Moses eat that diet? No. He radiated light, and he didn't eat the diet that they had, which was an animal-based diet.
I don't think, at least maybe in a commentary it talks about that, but I don't think it talks about Moses' diet, specifically what he ate and didn't eat.
No, it kind of implies he didn't eat for 40 days up there. And it kind of implies when he came down, it was really 120 days. It was 3 times he was up there. So for 120 days straight, he didn't eat, and he came down radiating light. It kind of suggests, and maybe I'm reading it into it, that he was living off, the divine energy and the sunlight, and because if you don't eat for 120 days and you come down shining light, I mean, it does kind of suggest that he didn't need to eat food anymore.
So when they started eating the meat after the flood, the age declined tremendously. Do you think that the introduction of meat into the body is something that declined the age so quickly?
Yeah, that's exactly they were living around 900 years, up to that. And then there was a big drop off into, Abraham 175 years. That's a big drop off from 900 years.
Sure.
And then it continued to get less over time.
Do you think if we go back to the Eden diet, we have the capability of living way beyond 120 years even?
Yes. But I think there's more to it than that, but yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Cousens, you're 82 years old. You do 1,800 push-ups every day or just every other day. You eat 1 meal a day consisting of a medium-sized salad with some sprouts in there. And I'm assuming some.
I will say in the morning I'll have a little bit of chia seeds.
How do you eat the chia seeds?
Just soaked.
Do you put them in almond milk or anything? You just soak chia seeds and just have
overnight, yeah.
How many spoonsful of that are you eating?
3 tablespoons.
A few tablespoons of that. Then you have it, 2?
3 tablespoons.
3. And why do you do that? I mean, you're not doing it for the flavor. I mean, why are you doing that?
Because it's good for bowel function, to be honest.
Okay.
You
So
get some omega-3s, but it's mostly it's for my bowel function in general. It's good for bowel function.
Okay, you're doing that. Are you drinking water throughout the day, or do you drink water?
Yeah.
What kind of water?
Well, I try to have activated water.
Okay.
Filtered, obviously. RO, filtered, activated.
Okay.
And I will put a little bit of 82 mineral salt in it.
What about the some people use the hydration tabs, or they add it to the water with the magnesium? Do you think that helps?
I don't do that. I'll just put salt in it.
Okay. So you get up around 6 a.m. You're exercising. You're doing a few tablespoons of chia seeds. Then between 10 and around 1 o'clock, you're having your meal, your little salad. then you don't eat anything the rest of the day, and you go to sleep at around so for 9 hours you're not eating anything, and then you go to sleep around 10 o'clock,
10:30, 10:30.
10:30ish, and then you're getting good sleep, and then you get up the next morning and do it again.
Yeah.
Now that's you. You've been you incorporate a lot of other things, spiritual practices, and a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga and spiritual practice, and of course
So
you're dancing.
I meditate an hour twice a day. I do yoga, half hour a day. I walk or on one of those machines that vibrate, depending on the weather and everything else.
And go ahead.
That's what I do.
Has your weight remained the same over the years?
Yes.
How tall are you and how much do you weigh?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think I'm getting taller. So I'm going to say I used to be 5'10.5". I'm closer to 5'11". And I don't have a good explanation for that. And my weight is about 160.
Okay. Now, practical wise, a lot of people don't have the mindset to do what you're doing, but from the daily life, people living in the city and living a life, what do you say or suggest the average person should work towards? Let's say they're buying their vegetables and some fruit from the supermarket. Do you recommend 80% live food, 20% raw they should shoot for? Maybe 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day? How much sleep? What's your recommendation for the person that has not been diagnosed with a disease? Because we know when somebody has a disease,
Right.
it's special. But for the average person watching, they're wondering, what's the best thing I should be doing? What would you say?
So the first thing is there's no average person.
Okay.
So every person should see themselves as unique within certain limits. Okay? So what I recommend is to be 100% organic, 100% vegan, and 80%, at least 80% live. Those are the bottom lines that I have. Everybody seems to be able to sustain themselves on. It's like, this is really safe. I've seen that. I've been doing this since the late 60s, early 70s. It works. People are sustained. I mean, I have people I've been seeing for 50 years. It's like, it works. Okay, so that's a baseline. Then people have to eat according to their constitution. That's how I bring in, like in my book, Conscious Eating, the different constitutional types. So you have to slant your diet that way to fit. Some people need more oil, some people need less oil. People argue about oil, they're missing the point. Everybody's a little different. And if you're Vata, you need more oil. That's kind of what it is. If you aren't, you don't hardly need any oil. Then I recommend exercising some level, like 30 minutes 4 times a week. That seems to be enough. Sorry, so that seems to be enough to make it work for people. That's like the minimum to get maximum effect.
Sure.
Recommend meditating, because meditating actually regenerates your brain size. People who have meditated for 5 years regularly have a physiology that's 15 years younger, according to some of the research. That's a pretty good measure. But we're also seeing that some research is showing that you increases your brain size per year by about 1%. Understanding that people's brain size shrinks after like 40. Some people say 30. So it shrinks up to 1%, every 10 years or something. So I do recommend that meditating, exercising, and the lively diet all increase your brain size. Those are the 3 things we know increase. Fasting, meditating, and the vegan diet all increase your brain size. So we obviously don't want to have a shrinking brain. So those are the 3 components, and they make everything else work. You do a certain amount of exercise. I mentioned half hour 4 times a week. That's the minimum. I'm giving minimum because we want it to be, like you said, for the regular person.
Sure.
None of this is that hard. None of this is beyond what people can do. And that's how I like people to start. And then they can get more refined with that. But let's start at a basic that everybody can do.
Sure. Give an example. I have just a few more questions before we go. Give an example. The word meditation is used on many different levels today. And I know this is something that's a really big practice of yours. And on a really practical level, you know, give the definition of meditation. Is it not thinking of anything, or is it thinking, not overthinking, or is it thinking on one thing? What's when you say meditation?
Okay, so
An example.
understand I lived 7 years on and off in India. So in the Indian Patanjali Yoga Sutra says Yoga Churti Nirodha, which is stopping the activities of the mind. Vertis are called activities. That is first level of meditation. I'm teaching another level, which is you go beyond the mind, go beyond the activity of the mind, even if it's quiet, merging into the nothing. So that's kind of where we get beyond the mind here. And that's what I'm teaching in my last book, Into the Nothing, is exactly what I'm talking about. So you're merging with the one. And the idea is to do that every day. I think I found some reference to that in Torah and Talmud also, when they really talk about it. Rabbi Nachman, I don't want to get too much into it, I'm just saying there's references in the different traditions that takes you beyond just quieting the mind. So traditionally, people say that, but the kind of deeper meditation, you go beyond the mind, into the one. What the Bible says is you can't know God and live. Why does it say that? Because you disappear into the nothing.
Does
You
it say you can't
disappear
see?
into
It says
God.
you can't see God and live, right?
Yeah, can't know God, see God. See is, remember it's translation. Okay, so see God is not necessarily a vision. Okay, that's what Moses was told, but it's know or see, if you get what I'm trying to say here. You can't do that and live, because to see, you become one with God. Now, nothing against Moses, but he wasn't quite there yet. Obviously, God said, get in this crevice here and don't look. Look at my behind, but don't look in front. So what I'm saying is, you literally go beyond the mind. When you're beyond the mind, you can merge with God. And that's, to me, the real meaning of meditation. And that's where you get the full energy of the whole experience. So that's why I do that twice a day, because that's so energizing. But understand, meditation increases your brain size. It makes you physiologically 15 years younger after 5 years. I mean, what's wrong with it? I mean, can't
Sure.
complain about that.
Sure.
So, but exercise plays a role, and fasting.
Okay. Two last questions before we close here, and I appreciate your time. One is, with all the supplements a vegan should be taking today, one piece of fish or fish oil seems, from a nutritional standpoint, to meet the needs that we're missing on a vegan diet. Is it a spiritual thing, or is it just the toxicity of today's world, the oceans the fish is growing on? Why would you recommend against people consuming a small piece of fish or oil to get their supplements, to get their
Okay,
nutrients?
so it's a fun question. Okay, so from the spiritual point of view, when you eat an animal, meat, fish, chicken, dairy, whatever, you're taking on its pain and misery and cruelty. You take that into your consciousness. I'm not interested in doing that. It's enough just to have a clear mind. So from a spiritual point of view, from another spiritual point of view, we call it animal ego. And the yogis talk about this the most, where if you're eating meat, fish, chicken, dairy, whatever, dairy is included, you're taking on the animal ego. And that lowers your ego frequency rather than increases the ego frequency. So for those two reasons, I don't really recommend eating fish. Now, obviously, fish are very toxic, but let's take that out of that's today's world. Yeah, I'm talking from a clean world. In a dirty world which we live in, you don't want to get near fish. They're so toxic.
Sure. Did you
But
think
that doesn't speak to the spiritual aspects of it.
do you think Jesus ate fish, or was that a mistranslation?
In my book, Conscious Eating, I point out that Jesus did not eat fish and that Jesus was a vegan and he led an ascetic lifestyle. Now, he gave fish to people. He's a fish. His brothers are fishermen there in the Sea of Galilee. I mean, I've been there. Well, I live there, but I've been there. And it's like he was speaking to people where they were at. He's trying to bread and fish. I got to feed you people. What am I going to do? And then he created that.
Sure.
And that's the consciousness where people are at. Now, what if he gave them sprouts and avocado? They would think, what are you doing? What kind of nonsense is this? So here he is at the Sea of Galilee, and of course, fish is what they should be having. But I don't think there's any evidence, at least I show that he pretty much was he was a vegan.
And the Levitical priesthood and the sacrifices, do you think that was added to scripture or corrupted scripture, or do you think God ordained animals to be slaughtered on a daily basis?
I'm going to go historic here. And it was considered one step up to human sacrifice. Where did human sacrifice end? Abraham and Yitzhak. That's the end of human sacrifice in the Jewish tradition. They were like everybody else. They were doing human sacrifice. Babylonians, Sumerians, everybody's just doing it. Abraham comes and changes the game. No, we're not doing human sacrifice anymore. Well, we got to do something. So animals are instead of human sacrifice. And I think that's where the evolution goes. And then finally we get to, okay, we're not going to do animals anymore. We're going to sacrifice with prayer.
The difference is in the Torah, it says that God ordained or told them to do the sacrifices. They weren't just joining the culture.
Because they weren't ready to do anything more. He was speaking to people where they were at.
I see. Okay.
You don't go from human sacrifice to prayer. That's not where people are at. God has to do with these people evolving. Okay, let's just cut it. Let's just do animal sacrifice. That's one step better than human. Oh, now the temple burns down. That's it. With animal sacrifice, now we're going to do prayer. And so I think there's an evolution of consciousness that we have to include in how we look at it. We can't. When we look at 3,000 years or 3,700, 3,400 years ago, we have to be careful not to judge by what we know today, and see that there's an evolution of consciousness. And just like when we talk about diet,
Sure.
And what I believe will be the 1,000 years of peace, as we enter that, our diets are going to get more refined. It said everyone will be vegan by the time we're ready to enter the 1,000 years. Well, we're not there yet, but we will get there.
In all your teachings, if you could leave one thing with the future generations, you could leave a lot through books and videos and these things today. But what's the most important thing you'd like to stick in people's minds as what they need to remember?
Okay, there's only God.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And to see God everywhere. So everything we do is to be sacred. That's why we talk about diet. We got no blood here, and we're a diet that sustains us, and if we know what we're doing, sustains us well. But there's no blood. There's no pain and misery. We can say vegetables have that, but that's part of the role. So basically to see God everywhere, and that there's only God.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to put Gabriel Cousens links below to his website if you want to learn more about him and get his books and information. I'll put all that information below in the description. Dr. Cousens, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your excellent interview, Paul.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the raw life health.